It's pretty good. I know I've become a bit of an old curmudgeon who just doesn't really like superhero films. I don't really get excited to see them, but I did actually have some level of optimism for Thunderbolts because it looked a little different and the reviews on it. Jiminy Christmas, I think it was like the second highest rated Marvel movie ever, or somewhere in that general ballpark, at least for some period of time. I don't know if it still is. But heavens to Betsy, sports fans, I tell you, with the way people were salivating over this one, I half expected to go in a theater and have this movie rim me out. And now that I've finished watching it and I'm back in witness protection facility here, I can comfortably say this is not a top three Marvel movie ever made. Like, it's a good movie. I did enjoy watching it, but I think the hype is a little overblown now. And I'm not going to sit here and try and armchair psychologist you like a Redditor, but I'm going to spitball a theory that I think the reason people are so excited about this movie is because it's finally a new Marvel film that doesn't feel like you just wasted your fucking money going to see it. Like, a lot of them have just felt truly worthless and just like they have nothing to offer. This one is a good film, but I don't think it's like this masterpiece that's now started the golden age of Marvel films again. But it is a breath of fresh air in what has become a very stale set of films over the last few years, with a few exceptions, like obviously Guardians 3. But yeah, overall, it's solid. Now let's get into it a little bit. As you can tell from the trailers, you follow a ragtag team here with characters you're familiar with, but don't know all that well, such as Ghost, from one of my least favorite Marvel movies ever, Ant-Man and the Wasp. So the film already has its work cut out for you to make you care about someone that you just don't, like Ghost. And I actually think it does a good job at doing that because this movie focuses more on like the emotional aspects of these characters and the trauma they've been through and how that binds them together and how they can work together as a team to try and overcome what seems to be an undefeatable enemy with Sentry/Void. This isn't spoilers, you can get all that from the trailers. That's the premise of the film. They all come together in a way that's both silly and pretty exciting, where they're fighting each other. And the fight between all of them is really cool. And you know who else makes an appearance in here? Taskmaster, from everyone's favorite Marvel hit, Black Widow. Every time I think of that movie, I can't help but mention just how absolutely fucking absurd it is that the main villain's power was just being stinky. He smelled, and the smell that you smell, that smelled smelly, made you not want to hurt him. In fact, it made you unable to hurt him. So how do you get around that? Whereas a force field of odor? Well, you stop smelling it. So, spoiler alert for Black Widow, she breaks her nose and then she's able to hurt him. Wow, that was awesome. And Taskmaster's in that movie and completely ruined by it. And does Thunderbolts use Taskmaster better, finally giving redemption to what is otherwise an extremely cool character in the comics? Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Absolutely fucking not. It's even worse than I anticipated. Everyone who saw the trailer immediately theorized that Taskmaster was going to die early as like a show of force from the main villain, Void. It's not even that. Taskmaster dies for literally nothing. In the first 20 minutes, in the first fight scene, Taskmaster just eats a bullet right to the fucking noodle. And that's the end of Taskmaster. She just gets put down immediately. Her death served no greater purpose. It kind of became a joke for a little minute. Then they made a brief mention of how Taskmaster had a rough life, and that was it. I don't know who has a grudge against that character, but they really made it clear they fucking hate Taskmaster. Anyway, I immediately jumped into a critique here, but overall, I did like the movie. I do think it's overhyped, but I do appreciate that the film is a little different from most Marvel projects where it does dive into darker subject matter, like drug addiction, like suicide. And it shows you what all of these characters are going through and how they're all dealing with it in their own individual ways. And I think that's a very cool thing to do for these characters. And in turn, over the course of the film, you see them develop. You see them start to have a stronger bond to each other. And it's a film that finally focuses more on like the character development of the cast. And the performances in it definitely helped. I thought pretty much everyone did a good job here overall. And I really enjoyed the choreography of the action scenes early on. They were creative with everyone's powers. Even Ghost finally had some time to shine because I think Ghost has cool powers. Basically, Obito from Naruto. She's able to like phase through shit and have things like go through her and all that. Like, it's cool. And it was nice to finally get to see them get creative with that. Really, all the characters got that treatment except Taskmaster. That God rest her soul. But like, Walker got it. Yelena was also really hype. Red Guardian, not so much. He was kind of just like the brute force tank of the group. He didn't have a whole lot of choreography. It was mainly just like yell and like charge and kind of like get big, and then sometimes a couple haymakers and some of this, which is fine because that fits his character really well. Like I do like what they did with all the characters in all of the action moments. Bucky was super badass, so I do think they did great with the action. But I think it's important people know going in that Thunderbolts isn't really that kind of superhero film. It's not like a traditional superhero film where like they beat the villain through force or through clever tactics or anything like that. The action kind of stops happening after the first half. Like yes, there's a fight scene towards the end with Sentry, but it's very simplistic. Like it's just very much a one-sided thing with not a whole lot more to it, and then there's no fighting left. So if you're going in here expecting a lot of action, you'll get that to a good extent in the beginning, but not towards the end, because this is more of like a drama around these characters in this world and what they've been through, and the message it wants to get across, of course, being, being alone sucks, but you're not alone. Now, Yelena, I think, was good in this movie. She's obviously like the main character here, but the most interesting character, I think, is Bob. I really think he's one of the more interesting characters in the MCU at this moment, and I think they did a good job with this character, and I'm really excited to see where they take him. There's no way I can get into some of the things I want to talk about without spoilers, so we're diving back in again to spoilers. These are some big ones. Spoiler warning. I think the film is extremely predictable with how it all wraps itself up. If you watch my streams, you'll know I made a prediction on how they beat someone as powerful as Sentry/Void. I was very close. I was almost right on the money with that prediction. They, of course, could never beat him in real combat. They instead had to match him emotionally. And, of course, the whole theme being about how this guy, Bob, is, he's gone through a lot with addiction, depression, and everything that he's experienced. He had a really rough childhood. His upbringing was bad. And he feels so alone, thus Void. Well, they solve it with an anime lesson in the power of friendship. And, to me, that just felt like it fits. It obviously fits. But having it be a group hug at the end that defeats Void just feels really unfulfilling and very much like kind of how Soul Eater ends with a friendship punch. It feels just a little underwhelming, but it's not that bad because, again, this isn't a film that's supposed to show you how strong these characters are and what they're capable of doing and how they could stack up against all of the Marvel greats from the past Avengers or anything like that. It is more of a character piece in showing their development and how they come together and form a family, which is something all of them so desperately want. And I do think it does a good job of getting there, but with how dark a lot of the subject matter that it tackles here and it talks about, it just felt kind of a little too on the nose about, like, if we all hug, we're no longer alone and Void is defeated. So, I don't know. Again, it was fine. It wasn't, like, bad or anything. I just felt like there was probably more they could have done there because through the power of family and friendship, they defeat the undefeatable and undoes all of the death and destruction that was caused. It literally just brings everyone back instantly. But one other thing I want to briefly mention is that even though every character is given some level of depth and fleshing out on the things they've been through and their trauma, I do feel like a couple of the characters don't really get a chance to do much. Most notably, Ghost, and to a lesser extent, Walker. Walker gets a little bit more to do. Not a ton more, but a bit more. Ghost kind of is just a character that's in the background a lot in the second half of the film. Yes, she still contributes. Yes, she's still present for everything, but she doesn't really play a role in a lot of the things that start developing. And I was expecting more out of Walker because in the beginning, he was the big asshole guy who was, squaring off against Bob and busting his balls and stuff. And then that just vanishes pretty quickly. He stops being that guy. And then when he stops being that guy, he kind of just gets sidelined like Ghost for the second half of the film. So it's not the biggest deal in the world because when you have this many characters and you're trying to, develop all of them and give the audience a reason to care about them, some of them are going to get more attention than others, like Yelena obviously being the main character. So I get it. It's just something I wanted to mention. It would have been nice to see them also get some more attention in the second half, but not that big of a deal. But anyway, I liked Thunderbolts. It was refreshing to finally get something a bit different than we've been getting served the last few years of just forgettable mediocrity. This was finally something that I definitely think was worth seeing. It's really about it. See ya.